You know, like, I don't even really care about the shit talking much. Talk that shit. You feel me?
If I see him in real life, I might take something from him medical science can't give him back.
People talk shit. I'm not complaining about it. Fucking rock on.
Like, say something, you
talk shit too. Fuck it. I don't give a fuck.
You do, and we will.
Thank you all for being here. Let's get started.
Mister, I would have totally placed in my show if I had only gotten a proper tan.
What's the response there? So on the one hand, it's super valid. It's a very good raw demonstrator of that you might know some things if you're good at the thing you think you're good at. So it's definitely a valid take to say, like, put it charitably, like if Mike was better at bodybuilding, I could take him more seriously. Lots of other competitors, I'll remain civil and charitable and not name them, know insanely little. They're just born perfect and cheat all the time on their diets, still turn pro. And so judging a person's knowledge based solely on their own competitive performance is it's just massive fallacy of reasoning.
The doublespeak here is just super impressive. I mean, I expected a follow-up speech about how we've always been at war with Eurasia. The first line was just a politician's response to appear humble. I mean, this is a strategy right out of Mayor Quimby's playbook. Telling people that their complaints are valid, it's just a really good way to soften them up before dodging real questions and responding to arguments that nobody made. The correct line here is what he said the second time. Given that so many things grow muscle, the right genetics can make world champions from protocols that wouldn't help a weed grow any faster. Many pros just don't know why they're good, so if an individual prioritizes the habits of pros without more context, they are engaging in a fool strategy. Everybody knows this, but in this video alone, we have Mike waffling on whether or not you should or should not use that to validate methods. This part about Jay Cutler was absolutely hilarious.
And in case you think I'm a special snowflake, Jay Cutler has been on record several times, including on a podcast I just did with him, saying he's never trained to failure because he's the fucking man and has like a ton of Olympias. All of a sudden, people are real quiet. I haven't really seen Phil Heath train to failure. Have you?
No, I've seen him do some dog shit squats, though. I constantly refer to those
Phil
squats.
like trains, right?
In the same several sentence exchange, you have Mike appealing to Jay Cutler and Phil Heath's success as evidence that he was right, and everybody was real quiet then, and then Pac points out that Heath squats like dog shit. So the rules look like this. The pros do what I do, I'm validated. The pros do something else, it must be their genetics, and they're full of shit. Given the immense importance, it would be super nice if science did have any insight into the role of genetics for giving advice to individuals, but it doesn't, in Mike's own words.
Are some people just interested in like science and exercise being the same thing as like the science of transistors? Like, here's exactly the voltage channels you need, and we know this down to a 1-to-1 ratio.
When you're telling people what to do using the stamp of science, yeah, they're probably going to think that you don't have just massive holes in your understanding.
I'm trying, and I'm trying to improve, and I'm completely comfortable putting myself out there and failing miserably in front of the world because all I can do is my best.
Reconsider your life.
Now, I don't know why every individual in the masses is mad, but from my vantage point, I would say it's your commitment to using yourself as a testament to your training approach.
The only reason I compete is to illustrate to people the methods that we espouse at Renaissance Periodization are effective.
Then vocalizing that you're more experienced and knowledgeable than everyone.
You've never met anyone with as much willpower as me. And whatever it is you think you're good at in your life, I'd probably take about a year and become an authority in the field in which you think you're good.
No.
Then making rookie mistakes like eating cereal and refusing cardio, then hiding behind this fake mix of apathy and humility. I'm not an expert and I'm okay failing. Shoulder shrug emoji.
I'm failing and flubbing, and it is what it is.
It is not that you did not get a pro card that makes everybody talk shit. It's that you shot yourself in the foot with your own hubris. And this is what gives people pause when considering how reliable an authority you actually are.
Are the big guys good sources of info? Probably not. And they certainly don't know more than the science nerds in the industry.
You're a Thomas Sowell fan, Mike. But you seem to be presenting as if your narrow experience looking over dirt research gives you the power to hand wave away the best practices derived from 100 years of bodybuilding wisdom. So I'd tell you to rewatch Sowell's bit on the dangers of intellectuals.
An engineer isn't necessarily an intellectual.
If he builds a building that collapses, it doesn't matter how brilliant his idea was, he's ruined.
Let me quote Intellectuals in Society, quote, "The fatal misstep of intellectuals is assuming that superior ability within a particular realm can be generalized to superior wisdom or morality overall.
So, for example, when he's laying down on a bench with a 10-pound dumbbell and saying, this is how to build big biceps, is it really? Is it better than standing dumbbell or barbell curls?
I know the science about as well as most people. I know my body categorically better than everyone. The thing is also, like, I know I look like shit, and I know better than almost everyone or everyone how terrible I look down to the muscle group and love handle and everything. So it's like, it's not news to me. It's not a shock.
It indeed does take a true artist to blend self-deprecating humility with an assertion of superiority. Of course Mike knows better. He's a doctor. See, it's in his title. We don't care about your admission that I know I look terrible. We're interested in why, and you just don't seem to know why.
I have like big love handles that store a lot of water from back when I got fat on purpose to try to like do the spirit. Got tanning done by a tanning company. I won't say them what name they are because that's just not polite, but they under-tanned the living crap out of me.
Rethink that move, son.
I just say, like, here's how I understand the science, and here's me applying the science in my own way that works for me. But there are many, many different ways to apply science and general principles that can be anywhere between failing all out and going for RIR all the time.
Now, if you've managed to stay awake through any high school biology or physics class, you might find the continued appeal to quote-unquote many right answers and doing what works for me to hit the ear wrong coming from a science communicator.
I train about as close to failure as I seem to need. If I discover that on an exercise I get better results when going closer to failure, I push it. When I discover that an exercise getting really close to failure just fucks me up and doesn't seem to benefit me much, I pull back.
Because so many things do in fact work to grow muscle, they get to say, my recommendation is both scientific and of consequence. And when they get pushback, they can retreat to, there's many applications that work, so I just do what works for me. Yeah, see, trial and error, that's also evidence-based. If what works for me is the most important thing, which it objectively is, and Mr. Mike is justified cobbling together whatever out of his supreme understanding of the literature and then selling it under the label science, then the only rational conclusion for the viewer is that the non-personalized recommendations from the literature aren't worth the contents of an unemptied chamber pot. There are in fact many methods that build muscle effectively, and we don't know the why to most of them, but they like to lean on the word optimal when reciting their findings. And it gives the viewer a sense that this works better than that. And because these communicators communicate as well as a drunk DMV worker minutes before closing, their audience also comes to believe that optimal means better in every situation always, and so much better that not doing it is almost a waste of time. Whether these communicators are literally saying this doesn't matter because they have a sea of thumbnails that say this in very explicit, black and white sensationalist language. The fact is, you can expect the consumer glitches that make 2 cans for 99 cents sell better than 3 for $1. And if you're trying to maintain integrity in your brand, that is your obligation to anticipate. So when you have someone that represents the science the way someone like Israetel does, it's kind of like when a Catholic priest is in the pulpit too long. You spend so much time relaying the word of God, people start to see it as if whatever you say must be divinely inspired. Mr. Mike here is the man of science, and his viewers see every tweak to personal preference as representing the same science he represents, even though at every single turn, this is a loose extrapolation paired with a lot of his own anecdotal experiences and his personal preference. We should play a game. Is this science or preference? You have myo reps. Is this proven from the literature, or is it some Frankenstein mess from how Mike thinks it works? Then you have things like super slow reps with body weight. Is this a high-tech secret pro card hack, or is it just a way for masochists to feel the burn? And then what about this technique? Arching your back like an autistic dachshund. Most of this is just his intuition as a lifter, but like General Mills telling you that consuming Cheerios improves your heart health, you get to slap the label of science on it and it improves sales, even if it doesn't work at all the way people think it does work. And I will always say the people benefiting from the label are going to be the ones on the hook for explaining how it actually fucking works.
Yes, there's limitations. Yes, there's more to learn. Yes, but we have to take what is there and translate it into practice.
Son, you don't walk on concrete before it's set. You don't build a house without measuring everything twice, and you sure as shit don't serve meat before it's ever been seasoned and smoked. One of the most common defense strategies to defend exercise science is to claim that it's in its infancy. But last I checked, it's not acceptable to put infants to work. The libs sure made sure of that. Exercise science is underfunded because getting donors is quite a task when your pitch is fueling body dysmorphia in men's beauty pageants. Their research can't actually touch the things that make a difference, like genetic variability or how training has to change over time. If they could, the ability to optimize your training would be exponentially greater than these small differences that they fight over things like range of motion or volume. Our science isn't even seasoned and seared, it's still on the butcher's block. The truth is that exercise science is just another example of academic bloat. Colleges had an incentive to invent other tracks so the slow kids could feel like they were helping, because that means more tuition to fund tenured professors and do-nothing department heads. But the result of that is that we have people who could only ace their PE classes walking around with the title of doctor. And I don't even trust real doctors.
Whatever is the stretch, the highlighting that the stretch is important. I understand a sort of knee-jerk reaction when something receives hype, where people naturally want to be like, fuck this thing, I don't like this thing, everybody's talking about this thing. But what do you have to say to the people that are upset by the mere recommendation of spend an extra half a second in the stretch?
I really hope Renaissance Periodization has Pat getting that state mouthpiece money, since he is making a career out of being Mr. Mike's puppet interviewer. I mean, it's just softball after softball.
It is not really contentious anymore. 2 reasons why you would still find it upsetting. One reason is that you reflexively hate on trends. So there's like, if stretch is the current thing, there's always going to be just people who, it's very simple to describe, have almost always genetically high trait disagreeableness. And so anything you tell them, they're just going to want to disagree about it. That's most of the people in the comments anyway that are negatively biased. And the other reason is that it's really common is just defending your own training practices because you don't want to change and admit you were wrong on the margins.
This just had the aesthetic of a middle-aged esthetician who forces her clients to listen to her personal drama and then summarizes the root cause of all of it as haterade. In the face of legit fucking criticism about influencers using sensationalized language and massively over-extrapolating recommendations from piss-poor data,
I think training really close to failure is insanely overrated. I think this is borne out by the literature.
Pack is concerned about the people that get mad over this little recommendation to stretch. This is what we call a Mott and fucking Bailey. You make a strong claim, then you retreat to an easy to defend claim when you get pressured. They present the stretch over and over and over. That's the strong claim. It's all the dumbass videos Milo made. It's prioritizing it over literally everything else. It gets way into gimmick territory, and it's at the expense of established methods and to the point of ridiculousness. When asked about this having a bright shining spotlight on it in this era of lifting, they say, "What's the harm in recommending a little stretch?" That is not a genuine way to engage with criticism. And this is a really important point, guys. Real men of science are genuinely curious about answering hard questions. They live for the fastballs. These guys can only hit from the tee, and if you have any questions about it, you must be just hating.
Get a lot of like, I tried Israetel's training style. Be like, oh, like, what's my training style? The minimum effective volume landmarks that we set up can be interpreted as Mike Mentzer style training. So you could say that was Israetel's advice. Or you could just crank it all the way up to MRV and just be doing 25 or 30 sets for every muscle group. When people say I tried Israetel's training style, because I don't have a style. I just described all the variables and said how you can shift them to get whatever optimal results you want.
This was an excellent dodge, Neo. It's like Bruce Lee said, be like water. Because as we're seeing in real time, no one can hit you if you possess no form or substance.